Sheets. Mark Hamlin here, and today I'm going to be taking you through the presentation on Warehouse Insight. So what we're going to do today is go through a little bit about, small PowerPoint presentation on who we are and that sort of thing, and jump right into the software demo. These things usually take about 30 to 45 minutes, depending on how things go. And if you do have any questions, there's a question box in the webinar panel there that you can ask your questions, and I'll do my best to answer those questions as we're going through the session. All right, with that, let's get started. So a little bit about InsightWorks. We're based in Western Canada. We do have offices sort of worldwide, US, other parts of Canada, that sort of thing. And nowadays we have 30 or 40 home offices because everybody's working from home. But we are based out here in Western Canada. But most of what we do to support our customers, globally, is through our resellers, our partners. So if you go to our website, you can see if your existing Nav or Business Central partner is one of our resellers. And if they are, you can contact them for additional information, or you can contact us directly if you need, any technical questions or pricing questions and things like that answered for you. All right. So that's very briefly who we are. This is somewhat briefly what we do. So these are sort of some of the major products we have available on for the products. We have a few other things available as well, but this is generally what we provide on AppSource and for Business Central and for Nav. So all of these products here are generally available for Nav 2013 all the way up to Business Central Cloud and Business Central on-premises. So if you're running a version of Nav or Business Central, we likely support you. Now, almost everything here except for MX APS is built right into Business Central or Nav. So there's no separate database to use, nothing like that. You install the software and you're connected and you're doing all your work out of Business Central or Nav. Now, today we're going to cover off Warehouse Insight, but I'm going to give you a quick overview of some of these other guys, just so you know what they are in case there's any interest in some of these other modules. Warehouse Insight here. Dynamic Ship often does go with Warehouse Insight because it's integrated shipping. So this will integrate with your carriers, UPS, FedEx, guys like that. There's about 100 different carriers and LTL and all that sort of thing. So you use Warehouse Insight to do all your warehouse management stuff. You take it over to shipping and they can generate labels and all that kind of stuff with it. Advanced Inventory Count, we'll cover a little bit of this today. It often does go with Warehouse Insight, but Advanced Inventory Count can work paper-based or with the scanner, and it really does improve, the ability to do inventory counts and cycle counts within Nav or Business Central over the standard functionality. We'll cover license plate, and we'll cover that in the demo. Shop Floor Insight is if you're in manufacturing. This is a manufacturing execution system. It gives you, labor tracking, consumption, output, quality, graphical scheduling, all that kind of stuff you need to sort of manage your shop floor. That's Shop Floor Insight. MX APS is an advanced planning and scheduling tool, so that's what the APS is for. It'll actually go out and generate the schedules you need for your manufacturing facility based on whatever criteria you throw at it, like capacities and load and setup times, all that kind of stuff will generate a executable schedule for you. Counter sales is useful if you have a parts counter or an outlet store attached to your warehouse or those sorts of things. It allows you to do point of sale activities from within Nav or Business Central. So taking multiple payment methods, being able to scan UPC codes to build up a sales order, all of those sorts of things. That's what counter sales is for. So sort of an industrial point of sale built into Nav or Business Central. Product Configurator allows you to build up, kits, assembly bombs, basically, or production bombs and routings based on choosing options for a specific product. And we can also set up calculations and rules and all those sorts of things within it. So if you do have configurable products and you want to be able to quote those easily, that's the Product Configurator. Enhanced Planning Worksheet, that's good if you're, if you're in here, you might be in distribution. And the Enhanced Planning Worksheet actually works very well for that because we have additional business logic compared to the standard planning worksheet in Nav that lets you calculate, purchasing from your vendors for a distribution center. The standard MRP is a little bit noisy. Lots of stuff you don't need to see, all that sort of thing. So logic in the Enhanced Planning Worksheet does a lot better. Or if you just want to run standard, Nav or Business Central MRP, this is also useful because it gives you a much better dashboard for planning your purchases or your production or whatever you need to do. Barcode Generator is a free tool available on AppSource for Business Central Cloud. If you need to add barcodes to your reports, that would be the guy you can use. You install that, and then your developers can add whatever reports or barcodes they want to the reports. Doc Extender is also a free tool available on AppSource for Business Central Cloud. Just lets you drag and drop documents into Business Central. So you install that, again, it's free, and now you can drag and drop into the attachments in Business Central. And then the last one, Nav Extender, if you're running the Windows client, either Business Central Windows client or Nav Windows client, you go to navextender.com, download that, run it, and you can now drag and drop any document you want into any page within Nav. There's no license changes or code changes or anything required. You just run that app and you're good to go. Okay, so that's a quick overview of the various products, but of course what we're here for is Warehouse Insight. And if you're on this call, you probably already know why you want barcoding, but really there's a couple of key points with barcoding. One of them is inventory accuracy, right? So the inventory accuracy is a big element of the return on investment for barcoding. And what that means is, you know where your product is, and you know it in effectively real time. So you're not having warehouse people run around the warehouse trying to find something. If people are using the scanners and barcoding diligently, you're going to know where that product is. They're not going to be hunting for it for 20 minutes in the warehouse when it could be in a 1-minute pick. The other thing is, we know that when you're shipping things, you're shipping the right product. You're physically verifying everything you do. So you're not going to accidentally ship the wrong product out and then have to pay to ship it back and all those sorts of things. So there's lots of elements of that inventory accuracy that'll save you money for sure. The other one is the timely information. So we've got real-time information coming back into the system, and that can save a lot of money too, or prevent a lot of issues. So for example, customer phones up and asks if you have something in stock, and the sales rep says no, we don't, but hey, it's sitting in the receiving area. It's just nobody's handed in the paperwork yet, or nobody's typed that into Nav yet. And so you're losing sales potentially because you don't know what inventory you actually have. Similarly, somebody phones up and wants to know if their product's being shipped or whatever, you'll know that type of thing in real time. So those are a couple of the big reasons why you might want to go barcode, which you probably already knew, so that was a waste of your time. Anyway, I got to talk a little more, which is good for me. Now, Warehouse Insight, why us instead of something else out there? Well, again, we're built right into Business Central or Nav, and we'll work with any of those platforms. And what I mean by range and depth of functionality, we'll support pretty much any industry out there, from foods to consumer packaged goods to manufacturing, all that kind of stuff. We can handle those types of deployments. Now, the depth of functionality is related to how we work with Business Central and Nav. We know how Business Central works. We know how you set up warehouses. Again, we're tied directly in there. So all the inventory transactions are real time, all that kind of stuff. So we know, all the different ways you can set up a warehouse within Business Central. We know how lot numbers and serial numbers work and all those sorts of things. So really, truly understand how the base package works and can help you with that. We have some advanced modules like the license plating and advanced inventory count and shipping and those sorts of things that you don't get in standard Nav or with some of the other applications out there. The extensibility framework and the built-in application builder are a big deal as well, because what that means is, 99% of what you do is probably available standard with Warehouse Insight, but if there's something that you need to do that we don't support or it's custom for your environment, no problem. You can extend the system. Typically you need a little bit of development capability, but your partner or us or yourself can extend the system using the built-in application builder or extensibility framework. And that works from Nav 2013 all the way up into the Business Central Cloud again. So it makes it very easy to extend it. You never have to look at our source code or modify any of our objects. You can just go and plug in your own applications, your own business logic. The Windows and Android support, so that's important if you're already running Windows devices or something like that, or you want to run this on a Windows tablet or whatever you want to do. We can support older Windows devices or newer Windows devices, and we have support for Android devices as well. And then finally, the last one is also important. It's a single company you're dealing with. We can provide the hardware, we can provide the implementation, we provide the software, and we provide the after implementation support. Now, a lot of the times the partners will do that. So your existing Nav partner will help you with the implementation, the support, and those sorts of things. But we're always there behind the scenes. We can always help with any of those areas. So you've really got one place to go to get everything you need to get your warehouse project going. All right, now a couple of the, well, not a couple, a lot of the applications are listed here. I'll go through some of these when we do the demo. One thing I will mention, the image capture is kind of nice. If you do get a device with a camera on it, you can take a photo anywhere in any process. So if I'm receiving and I get damaged product, I can take a picture of it right there. It'll automatically upload and attach to the document I'm working on. So now the purchaser has whatever they need to start a claim. Or if I'm shipping LTL or whatever, I can take photos of the product before it leaves to prove it left in good shape in case there's a damage claim back to me, or take pictures of signed paperwork or whatever and store that electronically. So that's kind of a cool thing. The rest of this I'll probably cover in the demo, so I won't talk too much about it. But all of these things are essentially standard with the product, okay, except these last three here. Those are sort of advanced modules. You know, you don't have to get them if you don't want them. All right, now let's talk a little bit about hardware. So that's all the software stuff. The hardware, you know, typically we're going to be using devices like this, and that's what I'll be doing the demo on today. I've got, you know, a device like this in my hand here, and I'll use it to scan. But you know, phones or devices without physical keypads, you know, pretty much anything you want to use is possible. Again, you can contact us and we can help you figure out what device makes the most sense for you in your particular environment. You know, we work with all the different manufacturers and everything else. All right, so part of the hardware decision and even the software decision is how you're going to do barcoding. So the barcoding strategy. Now, the ideal situation is you want your vendors to do all the barcoding for you, so you don't have to do anything, right? Stuff arrives, it's barcoded, and you're done. But if they don't do that, or if you're a manufacturer and you need to generate your own barcodes, you can generate those barcodes from within Nav or Business Central, and we support the standard linear barcodes and also these 2D barcodes. So these are data matrix barcodes, and that's usually what we recommend if you're doing your own barcoding. And the reason is, you know, this small little guy here at the bottom, that's about a ½ inch square when I print that out. And that can hold about 40 characters worth of data. So I can fit item number, lot number, expiration date, quantity, unit of measure, variant code. All of that could fit in one barcode that's ½ inch square. And I could make it smaller and fit less information in it. Going the other way, if I make that barcode about 1.5 inches square, I can read that from 50 feet away with the right scanner. Okay, so now I can label my pallets or my racks and I can scan those from quite a distance. And that barcode is still relatively small. Plus you can scan them upside down and left, right, whatever you want to do. So they're very good barcodes. Anyway, regardless of which you use, we don't really care. Any standard format, any custom vendor format, your own formats, you define what you want in that barcode, we can read it out. All right, now let's talk a little bit. So that's all that stuff, you know, there's software, hardware, all those sorts of things. The pricing, again, this is where you'd get engaged with your partner or potentially us to help you. But the pricing somewhat depends on which version of Nav or Business Central you're running. The most common is using a device license. So each device that you have out there has a license, and then you can have 20 people using that same device and you only need the one license. But there are some other options depending on, you know, the version of Nav or Business Central you're on. And as I mentioned earlier, if you want some advanced modules, you don't have to pay for them. But if you do want them, you know, it's an extra cost and you can plug these guys in at any time you like. Now, the return on investment for all that, so hardware, software implementation, there's a white paper on the website you can go through and it gives you some ideas on how to calculate the ROI, and there's lots of websites that give you that kind of detail. But a couple of anecdotal case studies here. One was, you know, a company that had, everything was serialized. Everything they had a serial number on it, and they had thousands of these things. And it actually took them 4 days to do a full count, including recounts and everything else, with 20 people. So 20 people counting for 4 days to capture every serial number in the facility. They went to scanning and that dropped it down to a single day. So they saved 60 man days on the first time they did the count, right, from accounting perspective. So that was a huge saving. So that was a big one. The other one, we had a fairly high volume customer. I mean, they're doing 5,000 pick lines a day across multiple facilities. So that's a fairly high volume. And they estimated they were saving about $600 a day by avoiding missed shipments, right, where they ship the wrong product and have to ship it back, all that time savings from people wandering around the warehouse looking for things that they couldn't find, you know, those sorts of things. So it's unlikely, you know, unless you're that kind of volume, that you're going to save $600 a day, but you could very easily save $60, $100 more a day, depending on where you're starting from today, right? All it takes is one accidental shipment of the wrong product that now costs you $50 to return and ship the right product out. Well, you know, that if that's happening regularly for you, you're going to pay for the system in no time. All right. Enough of that. Let's jump in and see what the software looks like. So what I'm going to do is anytime we have to jump in, I'm going to use the Business Central Cloud version to do it. But what I'm mostly going to be demoing is the handheld device. So what you see here on the screen is I've actually got one of these CK65 things in my hand. So that's very much like that image I showed you in the PowerPoint, where I've got a physical keypad on this thing. It's a standard warehouse type scanner. And what you see on there is the application that's running. Now this happens to be an Android device. If you've seen videos or other demos, I often demo on my Windows device, but today I'm doing the Android, but it doesn't really matter, right? It's the same application whether you're running it on Android or Windows. So you can use either approach. You can run it on a tablet, a Windows tablet, Android tablet, handheld device, phone, whatever you want to do. Okay. Now, what you see on the screen here are all the applications. And I should mention, we are, of course, on Wi-Fi here, and that's how we prefer to operate. We want you to be live in real time. So every time I scan anything or do anything, we're going back up to Nav or Business Central. And incidentally, this guy is connected up to Business Central Cloud, up to my sandbox in the cloud here. And I'm actually at home today. So this is going over my home network, which hopefully holds up, out to Business Central Cloud and coming back to the scanner. Now, what we've got here is, again, it's real time. So every time I scan anything, it's going into Business Central or Nav and validating what I've done and bringing the results back. Now, if there's a network failure or power outage or something bad happens, we do have an offline mode. You can go in and you can capture all that detail offline, upload it when you're back online, and then process those scans from within Business Central. We also have the ability, if you want, to configure your own offline applications, right? So you can just go right into Business Central, and within a few minutes, I can configure an offline application. And if there's custom business logic you need in Business Central to deal with those offline scans, you can add that in. But you can build your own offline applications. We do have a standard one with the system that covers off pretty much everything. But if you want a custom one to, go count fixed assets outside the facility or whatever, you can do that. Okay. There's a question there. It's a little long. I'll get to that question in a moment. All right. So Wi-Fi, we want good Wi-Fi in the facility. If there's something bad that happens, you can do offline. Now, all these other apps, I'll give you a quick overview of what they are, and then we're going to jump in and have a quick look at what these things look like. So item inquiry and bin inquiry lets me scan a barcode, and it tells me what it is. Right, so again, any barcode format you want, you can scan it. We'll figure out which item it belongs to and deal with that. Bin inquiry, same thing. I scan a bin code, it tells me what's in the bin, that sort of thing. The inventory count, so we've got two. We've got count, this is the advanced count, if you want to get the advanced count module, and we have a basic count. The advanced count is much better. It'll reconcile lot numbers, serial numbers, give you automated recounts. Actually, I'll get into that later, so I'll show you. The basic count just uses the physical inventory journal, so you're stuck with all the limitations of the standard Nav or Business Central capabilities there. Receiving and put away. So the way I've got this environment set up is I've got a two-stage receive and put away process. So I first receive everything, and then I do a secondary activity to put it away in the warehouse. You don't have to turn that on. If you just want to receive against the purchase order, you can do that. So as an example, you might have a distribution center that you want to do sort of the full warehousing, receiving and put away. Maybe you have a store, you still want to use a handheld to receive, but you're just going to receive directly against a transfer order. So you don't have to use that put away if you don't want at a store, whereas the warehouse uses it. Same thing with pick and ship here. I do a pick, I drop it off at shipping, and then there's a secondary activity for somebody to ship it out, or I pick it and I drop it off and somebody does something else to consume it into production. The movement stuff here, I've got an ad hoc move where I can just pick up a scanner, move product from bin to bin, don't have to go into Nav or Business Central to do anything, I can just do it all from the handheld. And I've also got the directed move or the inventory movements that I can use as well, depending on what you've got turned on in Nav, where the system actually tells me what I need to move, okay? Consumption and output, if you do that, if you're in a manufacturing facility, we can handle both consumption and output on production orders. And often we'll see people run, for example, output on a tablet, right? They'll have a fixed tablet by the production line, and they'll do all their output from a tablet instead of a handheld device. We also can do assembly order output. So if you're doing make to stock assembly orders, we can come in there and do that as well. License plating is an interesting technology because what it does is it allows you to build up a single barcode, really like a pallet or a box or anything that holds some inventory. It allows you to build up a single barcode to represent all of those individual items. So that can be mixed items, mixed lot numbers, mixed serial numbers. Then I've got one barcode to scan to either move that around in the warehouse or to ship it or even to receive it or to consume it, all of those sorts of things. So license plating, again, it allows me to group items together, and I can do that throughout the system. So an example is in picking. If I'm in picking, I can start a license plate. Let's say I'm driving down the aisle with a forklift and I'm building up a pallet as I go. I can start that pallet in picking, build it up, and then when I get over to shipping, I know how many pallets I've picked and I know the contents of each individual pallet. And I print my bill of lading, and then away I go. All right, so that's the basic applications. Let's jump in and show you what some of them look like. So I'm going to start with receiving, right? So we go on to receiving here, and what it'll do is it'll load up all the documents that I have available to receive. So these are all the purchase orders in the system that I have access to and who they're assigned to. Now, the typical scenario is, I'm standing at the back door, I've got the vendor packing slip in my hand, and it's got my purchase order number on it. So I might type in a few digits of that PO number up here in the filter, and it'll filter this list to match, or I'll scroll through there either with my finger or with the arrow keys on the physical keypad to find the PO I'm looking for. Now, if you want to find it by some other mechanism, and I can also scan an item here as well, by the way. If I scan an item, it'll filter this list to every purchase order that has that particular item on it. But the nice thing about this is, let's say I want to see additional information. I want to see the vendor name or the expected receipt date or some other things like that. I can do that from within Business Central. So I can go in there at any point in time and I can decide what columns I want to show in the various applications. So I can set that up here. And I can also do that from the handheld device as well. I can just tap the menu at the top there. Oh, screen share is taking a little while to catch up. And I can hit choose columns. And what that will do is allow me to select any columns in the system, decide if I want to hide them or show them or set the width, all of that kind of stuff. So it's very much like Nav or Business Central, where I can tailor the screen to my requirements, while I'm using it. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to choose that first document there, that first purchase order. And what it'll do is it'll go in, it'll load up everything I need to receive on that particular purchase order. There's not much on that one. Maybe I'll just back up and choose the other one. Again, you never really have to touch the screen. You can use the arrow keys if you like to move around on the screen. You don't have to, tap the screen to do any of this stuff if you really don't want. Now, here's a question: how will you handle receipts that have more than one PO on it? Yes, so if you created a warehouse receipt ahead of time, now you'll notice this actually, I chose a purchase order number, but it opened up a warehouse receipt. It'll either create a warehouse receipt automatically or find a warehouse receipt that matches that PO. And so you can't create warehouse receipts that have multiple purchase orders on them. And if you want to see which purchase order, each of these lines are for, you can either make that field visible in here. It's actually one of the fields in the list, or you can stick it down here at the bottom in this box here. That's really just configuration, and then you can show which purchase order each of these items belongs to. But in my case, I don't really care. I've chosen a PO, it's loaded up what I'm supposed to receive, and now I'm going to start scanning it in. And the nice thing here is, if the vendor has got it barcoded for you, I don't have to do anything. I just grab the stuff and I start scanning. If the vendor doesn't have the barcodes, there's two other options. One is I can come in here and I can hit print, which I actually disabled that menu item on the last thing, but you can have a menu item in here for print, and I can hit print and it can print whatever labels I need for that particular purchase order, or receipt, or line that I have selected or whatever. So these menus are all configurable. You can go into Business Central, you can add or remove whatever menus you like. Okay. The other way you can do it is you can actually have the labels print after you specify the quantity. So for example, if I don't have a barcode for one of these items, I could just select that line, hit enter on the physical keypad, or double tap it, or hit the change quantity menu item here, that sort of thing. And after I enter the quantity, I can specify how many labels I want to print for that particular line. Okay, because maybe I've got 100 boxes here, but I only want to print one label for the pallet or something like that. Now, the typical scenario though is, after all that talking, is if I've got vendor barcodes on the product, all I'm going to do is I'm going to grab something out of the pallet, and just so you know, I'm going to scan this LS150 at the bottom. I don't know what I'm scanning. I just grab an item with a barcode, I scan it, and I turned the volume off on my scanner, so I'm just going to crank the volume up so that you guys, well, that's for some reason that brought up the call volume, but hopefully that is going to, there we go, media volume. That's going to, now you'll hear the scans when I actually scan the stuff. All right, so now I scan that and I can just enter the quantity. So this quantity here, by the way, we can specify really, you know, anything you like. We can default it into the remaining quantity. We can force people to scan every single item, and you can set that up on an item category basis or an item by item basis, a whole bunch of different rules that tell tell the system how to ask the user for quantity. Again, maybe you've got some larger items and you want to say, you know, they have to scan every single one they find, and I could just beep it and it'll increment the quantity by one and not even prompt me for any of this stuff. Now you'll notice underneath here, it's got this thing called some date. Well, you know, that was another demo. I added a field. You can configure this quantity entry dialog to whatever extent you like. So if you want to add things like number of labels to print, or, you know, alternate quantities and units of measure, you know, whatever you want to capture, that's just configuration. You can enter those fields. I can capture that additional information. So if you've got some additional information you need to capture, like we've had people that need to capture, you know, IMEI numbers like SIM card numbers and things like that, you can just plug that in. That data is available, and now within Business Central, you decide what you're going to do with it. Okay, so very extensible. So this is where you'd put the number of labels, and then you'd print whatever report you want after they specify the number of labels. And there's a little calculator and stuff. You can change a unit of measure here if you like. Again, you can default that unit of measure to all sorts of things like the unit of measure in the barcode, or the put away unit of measure, or the base unit of measure, whatever you want to do. Or you can have the employees change the unit of measure as they're receiving. All right, anyway, that was way too much talking. Really what it boils down to is I scan a barcode and I enter a quantity. So I scan that, I enter the quantity. If I find more of these on a second or third pallet, I would just go, it still didn't beep when I scanned. That's too bad. Anyway, and now I can come in and let's say I find 5 more of those guys. I can just keep entering that quantity. It just keeps incrementing this and reducing my outstanding quantity. And what that means is I don't have to, you know, unpack everything, put it into a pile, count it up. I just scan the barcodes and away I go. Now, if there's lot tracked items or anything like that, none of these are actually lot tracked, but if there were and the lot number's in there, it'll bring it in the barcode, it'll bring it in automatically. Otherwise, I can scan the secondary barcode for the lot number, manually enter it, or have Nav or Business Central generate it for me. Okay, so let's see, there's another question there. Yeah, I'll answer that. I'm just trying to figure out why my scanner isn't beeping, but that's okay. I'll answer the question that was just asked in a bit as well. Okay, but that's basically it for receiving. Now, a couple of other things I could have done while I was receiving. I could have started this license plate, and what that would do is it would start a pallet, generate a brand new pallet, or let me use an existing pallet, and everything I receive goes on that pallet. And now I've got a single barcode, pallet or box or whatever you want to do. Then I've got a single barcode I can scan and move that pallet around in the warehouse, put it away, do whatever I like. Okay. When I'm done, I can hit post. That'll post this receipt, whether it's a purchase receipt or a warehouse receipt or whatever, into Nav or Business Central. And I never have to actually go into Nav or Business Central to do anything. I can do everything I need to from the handheld device. Okay, but that's basically receiving, right? It's very simple. Scan a barcode, enter a quantity. Doesn't matter what order I do things in. Just scan and go. That's kind of the goal of all of this. Okay, so once I've received it, oh, and one last thing, when I post it, if you've got cross-docking turned on, it'll actually yell at me and say, hey, there's a bunch of back-ordered items, you know, make sure you don't put everything away. And then it'll generate a put away document that you can use to actually, you know, put that product away, and some of it will go over to the shipping area and some will go into the warehouse. The put away is, it's a standard Nav or Business Central put away capability, so you can either use the put away worksheet, or you can have the system generate the put away immediately and even print out the put away document, all those types of things. Or you can actually go in and scan an item that you've just received, and it'll automatically generate a put away for you. But let's say I received everything, I put it away, and now I get a pick ticket that I need to go out and execute. So on the picking side, there's a couple of ways that works as well. Now, most of the people print a paper copy of the pick ticket. And that paper copy, it does two things. Number one, if there's a piece of paper out there, I know I have work to do. So I pick it up, I scan the barcode, and I execute that pick. And then when I'm done, I can leave that piece of paper with what I picked so that shipping knows what the heck to do with it. So most people still print a paper copy of the pick ticket, but you don't need to, right? I've got all the picks listed here and who they're assigned to. So if it's not assigned to anybody, I know it hasn't been started. I can grab it, it'll automatically assign it to me, and I can do my work and everybody knows who's working on it. And again, if you want to have things like the due date, or if you have custom priorities or any of that kind of stuff, you can add those fields in here, and I can make them visible on that list as well. So this could become like a mini dispatch list for you for picking. Now, let me just grab this first one here and let's see what's on it. Okay, yeah, this isn't a bad pick. So I grab that first pick ticket, and it's fairly straightforward. It tells me, what order I'm supposed to pick in. This, the bin order is generated by Nav or Business Central. If you're in an environment that doesn't have bins or pick tickets, that's fine. If I didn't have bins enabled, it just wouldn't show me the bin column, and I just scan the item. Or if I do have bins enabled, but I don't really care if people scan the bin or not, though you should. But if you don't, you can set it up so that I don't even have to scan the bin. I just scan the item that I'm picking, and it'll just assume that the user picked it from the right bin. So there's lots of options there. And again, if I don't have pick tickets turned on, I can pick against a sales order or an inventory pick or warehouse pick or transfer order or whatever you want to do. Now in this case, this is the order that Nav or Business Central has given me to pick things in. But you know what? I don't want to pick in this order. I want to start here at this bin 0412. Now this, I should mention, this view that you see here is what we call the grid view or the table layout. There's another one called the card view, which shows me one entry at a time. So the screen is more like a card screen in Nav or Business Central where everything's vertical. And it shows me one item to pick, one item in bin. Once I've done that, it moves me to the next one, next item in bin. So it forces people to go in the appropriate order. But in this case, it gives me a lot more flexibility. I can see what I'm supposed to do. I can change what I want to do, all sorts of stuff. I can resort this if I want to, tap that and sort by item number instead of bin code or whatever I want to do. You've got that capability. So in this case, I'm actually standing at this bin 0412. That's actually where I want to start picking from. I don't want to start picking from, bin 0201. So what do? In my case, I walk up to that bin. Geez, I wish this thing beeped. Anyway, figure that out later. But what I did there was I scanned the bin code. You didn't hear the beep. But I scanned the bin to identify which bin I'm going to pick from. And again, this is that physical verification. We want to make sure that people are doing what they're told. They're verifying they're actually doing what the system is telling them to do. So I said, yep, I'm at this bin, and then I'm going to scan the item that I'm actually picking out of that particular bin. So I beep that, and we'll go beep. There, I beeped it. And what it does is it pops up and asks me for the quantity. Now again, here, we can set up whatever quantity defaults you want. This one defaults into the remaining quantity to pick, but I can set it up to just scan one at a time or default in the remaining quantity of the lot number that I scanned or whatever you want to do. Now again, I've got a physical keypad, so I can enter the data on the keypad that you don't see. Just if you want to see what it looks like if you didn't have a physical keypad and you're using the Android keyboard, this is what it would look like, right? So that's with the Android keyboard turned on. I'm going to turn it off because I like the physical keypad. So let's say I picked, let's say I picked 6 of these guys, right? So what I do there is now it says, okay, there's 4 left outstanding, and I've picked 6. So now what do? I've been sent to this bin to pick a whole bunch, and I couldn't find them. So now I've got a problem. So there's a bunch of things you can do. If you're running on Android, maybe you've got, Teams or Skype or something here. I could just text somebody and tell them, hey, or call them and say, we've got a problem. Or I could leave a note within Nav or Business Central, right? Hit a menu button that's like an add notification that I can, let somebody know that we've got a problem with this particular pick. But regardless of what I do to notify somebody that there's an issue, I still want to go in and figure out where else I can find this particular item or figure out more detail about this item. So there's 2 ways I can do that. One is on my keypad, I've got it set up as a hotkey, or I can hit the menu here. And if you notice on the menu, I've got this item inquiry and it's F8. So again, if I just hit F8 on my physical keypad, it would execute this menu item. You can set hotkeys on all of these menu items if you like, so you never really have to touch the screen. But I'm just going to go in here, hit item inquiry. And what it does is it drills down to that particular item and gives me all the details about it. Now, if this item lived in multiple bins, I'd see all the bin locations and everything else. If this is a lot tracked item and you have lot warehouse tracking turned on, it could also show me the lot number and expiration date and all that by bin. Okay, so this gives me some ability to drill down and get more detail about this particular item. Now, just showing me where it is one thing, but I can also go in there and I can say, you know what, show me recent transactions on this particular item. So maybe this was just received and I can go, you know, hunt the person down that was supposed to put this away and figure out what the heck they did with it, right? Maybe they put it in the wrong spot or whatever. Maybe there's another outstanding pick for this thing. And I can, you know, that's Joe, he's always picking cases instead of eaches, and I can hunt him down and get my stuff back or whatever I need to do. So I can look at those recent transactions if I like, and I can also come in here and look at the picture. So I don't actually have a picture on this particular item. No, I don't. But if I did have a picture on that item, what it would do is pop up that picture, and that picture comes from within Nav or Business Central, just off the item card. Maybe I get to that bin, it's completely empty, and I don't know what it looks like. You know, the description might not be enough. If I have that picture there, which also, by the way, you can have it pop up while you're picking. So I scan an item and it'll pop up the picture. Maybe I can spot that item just sitting on the shelf beside where it's supposed to be. I can move it over and keep going. So this whole ability to drill down gives you a lot more insight into what's going on in the warehouse, and actually lets you make decisions while you're picking out there on the shop floor. I don't have to run back into the office an hour later and try and read what I wrote on the back of my hand or whatever you're doing today to sort of figure out what's going on. I'm on a pick and I need more information about something. I hit a hotkey and I've got that information, right? We've got this computer in our hand. We should use it like a computer and not just some dumb terminal, dumb scanning terminal. Okay, anyway, that was a lot of blah, 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 but really picking is generally quite easy, right? Most of the time, it's not all this drill down and all that kind of stuff. Most of the time it's beep, there I scanned the bin, you heard the beep. And then I scan the item that I'm picking out of that particular bin. This would optionally show me the picture here as well, enter the quantity optionally, and that's it. That's how I pick. It's bin, item, quantity. Beep, beep, and we're done. And that's your training session for your warehouse guys. You stand in front of them, you say scan bin, scan item, enter quantity, tell them that 100 times, and they're trained up. Maybe not quite, but you know, that gets them a part of the way. It's a very easy system to use, right? Just you scan a barcode and knows what you're trying to do and reacts accordingly. All right, so that's the basics of picking. Now again, with picking, same thing. I could have actually come in here and this start license plate, I could have actually created a license plate and everything I pick goes into that license plate. And that's a box or a pallet or whatever you want to define. Or I can actually scan a different barcode that creates a box or a pallet of a certain size with certain dimensions and everything else. The advantage of that is while I'm picking, I can actually go out, pick all of this stuff. And when I drop it off at shipping, it's already packaged. And all I have to do is hit a button and it generates my UPS labels. And I can even generate those UPS labels from the handheld device if I want, if you have dynamic ship installed. So it makes it very easy to package while you're picking. The other thing we'll have on here, I won't show you today, but we have the tote picking capability as well. So if you're batch picking multiple orders, you've got a picking card out there and you're picking 5 sales orders at a time, you can segregate those out into individual totes while you're picking. And then when you get over to shipping, you've just got 5 totes that you drop off. They scan the barcode on the tote and they can package it up and ship it out the door. Okay, so we do have that tote picking capability as well. All right, so that's the basics of the thing of picking. Again, oh, and the last thing on there, if I leave that screen, I can set it up to automatically post that pick, or I can manually post it. So again, we don't have to go into Business Central or Nav to do anything. It's all done from the handheld device. Now, the last thing I'm going to show you, and normally after picking, we do shipping, but shipping, the user interface is very similar. I can go in there, load up a shipment or a sales order, scan everything again if you want the users to verify what was picked, or I can just review it, hit go, and it'll post that shipment. Or I can palletize things up at shipping or box them up at shipping on the handheld and then ship them out. But what I'm going to do, given I've been talking a lot and I'm running out of time, is I'm going to do the inventory count piece. So I'm just going to briefly show you what we do with inventory counts. So this is the advanced count. We really have 3 different ways we can count. One is ad hoc, where I can just pick up a scanner without going to Nav or anything else, go out, scan my barcodes, review the discrepancies on the device, and actually post it from the device. So don't have to go into Business Central to do anything. Okay? The other way, or the other 2 ways, one is what we call a directed count. That's where the system tells you what to count. And that's good for cycle counts. You say, hey, give me 30 random items I need to count today, or give me all my items from vendor X, or give me all my finished goods, or whatever you want to do. Lots of different ways you can choose which items to count. And it'll generate a list and you go find those items and you count them. And then the last way is what we call non-directed. And that's where the system doesn't tell you what to count. You're just going to go out there and scan everything you find. And then, so you say, this is what I really physically have in the facility. And then Nav or Business Central tells you what the discrepancies are with the system. And so what I've done, I've gone into Business Central and I've created a bunch of what we call count sheets. They're kind of like batches, just a lot more advanced. And I've just named them Team 1 to Team 3, but you can call them whatever you like finished goods, raw material, whatever you like. And this Team 1 here has no lines on it. So if I open that up, somebody gives me a scanner and says, you're Team 1 today. I open it up, it starts out blank. So this is my count sheet. This is where I'm going to store everything I've counted. And it's blank because I haven't done anything yet. So what do? Well, you've already been trained. I go out, I scan the bin, beep, there was my beep. I scan the bin, I scan the item. I'm going to scan a lot tracked item here. I scan the bin, and of course I don't have the barcode rule set up, so it didn't recognize my lot number, so I'll scan a different item. So scan the bin, I scan the item, and then I enter the quantity that I've counted, and that's it. That's how you do your inventory count. Scan bin, scan item, enter quantity. And once I go through and I scan everything, and again, we can change the column widths and all that, so I don't have to scroll over to see the quantities and all those sorts of things. But I scan the bin, I scan the item, enter the quantity. I do that for all the stuff in there. And then I go within Business Central and I can go in there and do the reconciliation, and I can generate what we call automated recount sheets. So I can say, hey, anything that's out by more than 5% or whatever, automatically add that to a recount sheet for me. And what you see in the background here is actually the inventory count that I was working on. So that's scanning. Here's all my count sheets. Here's the item that I scanned. And from within here, I can sort of review, some of the discrepancies and those sorts of things in here. But really what you would do after you've done that count, when you've done that count, you'll come in here, you will review the discrepancies, and this will tell you what the differences are by lot number, by serial number, all those sorts of things. And then I can generate recount sheets where I can say, you know what, anything that's up by more than 10% or $500 or whatever, automatically add that to a recount sheet for me. And what that does is it generates a new sheet like this recount one I have here on the scanner or in here that gives me a list of items I need to go out and double check. And it keeps an audit trail. So it keeps the original count quantity, the recount quantity, and recounts on top of recounts. I can do as many double checks or recounts as I like. And that's great if you have auditors coming in, because I can do spot checks. I can use this automated recount thing, or I can just flag specific items for recount. So I can do spot checks and all those sorts of things with it. So it's great if you have auditors. And it's also good if you're spending too much money on Post-it notes and highlighters when you're doing inventory count, because this gets rid of all of that stuff, right? I just have the system automatically flag what I need to recount. I open it up in here. Here's all the things I need to double check. I go out, I scan them, and we're done. And then I do my reconciliation again. And when I'm all good, I copy it off to the journals and somebody posts it. Okay, so that's a little bit on the advanced inventory count capability. And just for fun, I'm going to go in here and reduce the size of my my bin so I can see the quantity as well. So anyway, you get the point. You can change this. You also have full control over the font sizes and all that kind of stuff if you want to have smaller fonts and whatever you want to do. Anyway, that's the basics of the inventory count and the system as a whole. I'll give you a second if there are any additional questions to ask while I read the first question we had, which is a little longer. Okay, so it's a little bit on the barcoding. So if there's a vendor that has a bunch of barcodes on product already, and those barcodes don't match what you have in Business Central, there's something called cross references in Business Central or Nav. If those are set up, then you scan that vendor barcode and we'll cross reference it to the item number within Nav or Business Central. If you don't have that list of cross references, you can set it up so that you can build that list of cross references up from the scanner. So while I'm receiving, if I scan a bad barcode, it'll say, hey, I don't know what this barcode is that you scanned, which PO line does this match? You choose that and it'll automatically create that cross reference for you, right? Or you can have a separate application that you build or run. In the older version, we had one where you just go in and you scan an item barcode, you choose you scan a vendor barcode, you choose the item that it matches, and it'll build that cross-reference for you. So yeah, it doesn't really matter what's in the vendor barcode or in your barcode. As long as you have a cross-reference to that, we can read it. And all of that is just configuration, that cross-reference stuff and everything else. And it's all set up within Business Central itself. Okay. Hopefully that answered the question. All right. Doesn't look like there's any additional questions, and I've been talking a lot. If you do have any additional questions, feel free to, send your partner a note, send us a note, and we'll do our best to answer them. And same thing if you have, so there's another question, but that last question that came in, I'll answer that offline if you don't mind. I've got your email address. Thanks, Rob. I know who it is, and I'll answer that. Oh, there's one more question. Any integration with HoloLens? No. So right now it's all handheld scanners. There's no augmented reality or any of that kind of stuff there yet. Maybe one day, but definitely not for a little while. At any rate, if you have any additional questions, feel free to ask us or your partner. It looks like there's nothing else coming in. So thanks everybody for attending. I hope you have a great weekend, and hopefully we'll be talking again soon. Thanks everyone.
Hey, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel for more great content.